Ho 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 and happy holidays everybody from Tavern TCG. I'm Coco Kane and I am very happy to be telling you guys that I have another deck profile for you guys today. Dark Alice is the one we are going to be featuring today. One of my personal favorites. This is actually my personal for fun deck. I like to just take this around when everybody's like, I want to learn how to play. I'm like, look at this. So go ahead and take a peek, like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what you think. And we're going to have more deck profiles coming soon. Taking a look at the ruler of our Dark Beauty deck, it is the Dark Alice! I'm sorry, I'm really excited. I really love Alice, and this version of Alice is just incredibly useful and is just incredibly gorgeous. In terms of the character itself, I feel like they could have done a better job on the artwork, but still, it is still a good character in itself, and I think it was a great idea to bring this character into the game. So let's dive right in, and on her ruler side we have Girl in the Twilight Garb. She judgments for 0, but you can only judgment if you've removed at least 3 cards in your opponent's graveyard with her ability. And her ability is to pay 1 darkness and remove a card from your opponent's graveyard. So, pretty straightforward. You remove at least 3 cards, and you do not have to rest her to use this ability, so you get to just use the ability if you have the open will. You remove at least 3, and you can J-activate on your turn when it is your priority with nothing in the chase. This is an amazing ability in itself because if you have unused will, say you have a darkness firestone open to show thunder just in case to kind of make them not want to attack, then you can use that open will at the end of the turn to remove something before recovery to remove something anyway, just in case. So it's an amazing ability to be able to not have to rest her to be able to do that, and I love it. Then we J-activate. When you J-activate, you declare a number, and you destroy all Resonators with the total cost equal to the chosen number, so that's pretty good against a lot of these weenie decks, including a lot of these fairies that are going around. She also has target attack, which I think is a pretty amazing ability in itself. If you go aggressive with a deck like this and you put Levitine, you can just kind of flip her and go crazy at people's faces. Also, her God's Art, which is the most relevant thing I think about this card. Her God's Art, for 2 darkness, J-Resonators you control gain +200/+200, and you search your main deck for a card named Schrodinger, the Fallen Black Cat, and you put it into your field, which is just gross, because if you've already removed at least 5, your Schrodinger gives your ruler +500, but we'll get to that later. And that -200, I'm sorry, I said +200/+200. I meant -200/-200. And that -200/-200 that goes to your opponent's Resonators is permanent. So everything that hits the field afterwards still continues to get that -2/-2. If they play a Lancelot, it's going to be a 400/400 Lancelot. So it does make a difference because they have to get it to 1,000 for it to be to do its shooting ability. So it makes a difference. It kind of shuts down a lot of abilities. Also, it stops them from being able to play their Rook Eggs. It stops them from being able to do abilities like that without some kind of field bonus of their own. So that's pretty amazing in itself. Looking at our stone lineup, we have a Little Red the True Stone, or the Pure Stone, excuse me. You call whatever color is relevant. In this deck we're going to mainly call black. We don't have really many reasons to call red unless it is an early game stone, and we really need that red source so we can drop our Gwens. But mostly this deck is a black, and we want to be able to buff most of our black Resonators, so we want to call black this. Also, we want to call black just in case the second stone is Grus Ballesta the Sealing Stone, so that way we're able to use the ability of the -200 to a Resonator's defense. And if for whatever reason you have, I don't know, Abdul in your sideboard, and you put him in, you get to flip him for 1 if your Grus Ballesta is in play. So that's pretty amazing. Then we have 4 Scorched Bales. That's our red-black source. This is going to be what we want to hit just in case we want to be able to throw in our Thunders and our Flame and drop our Gwen. And to finish things off, 4 Magic Stone of Darkness, because this is a black deck and we love our darkness. Next we're going to take a look at the Resonator lineup. Starting off we have 4 Guinevere the Jealous Queen, the hands down best card in the game. Takes all of your opponent's outs and turns them into pluses for you. Great card advantage no matter what, as long as she sticks. Worst case scenario for you, you play her and they wasted a turn to leave open a will and they thunder her. I'll take that. You just wasted a thunder on her and oh no, I don't get card advantage. That is the worst case scenario. And after you end your turn, as soon as you end your turn, you may immediately use her if they try to, oh no, before Recovery Thunder, well, now I get to draw 2, discard 1. So she is not a bad card at all, and if she stays on the board, she has continual card advantage, and she is just a great blocker for you turn 1 to 4. So, I will still be back behind Guinevere no matter what, being at least at 4 in any deck that requires a red in their deck. Then we have 2 Flame Sprite, because I love the incarnation fodder of 2 Flame Sprite, plus sometimes being able to just drop a 1-drop and snack them over the head when they don't use flyers is pretty nice. Then we have 3 Mozart, the best incarnation fodder I've ever seen next to Rasputin, but this is a 2-for-1. With Rasputin, it's just reusable. With Mozart, you get to take away one of your opponent's Resonators if they are playing a Resonator-based or Resonator-heavy deck, which is just great. So if you use him for incarnation, for say a Hoster, which we do not use in this deck anymore, but say you use it for a Hoster, you can possibly 2-for-1. You can make them banish a Resonator and target another. Then we have 3 Dark Faria. I am contemplating taking this to 4. I haven't quite decided to take this up onto 4 yet, but I do like this card. She is just amazing. She can be played as a 2-drop and just be a 5/5, if you guys know Magic terms, basically a 5/5 lifelink for all damage that Faria does, she gets to gain. Drop an Ame no Habakiri on her, and that's just going to be some scary, scary stuff. Or you can cast her for 4, and she's essentially a Carmilla that doesn't necessarily hit, or can hit anything. It doesn't have to not hit a vampire. It can hit anything. So you can cast her for 4, destroy something, or you can cast her for 2 and get a 5/5. That is up to you. And either way, just the utility is amazing. Also, I always seem to forget this, she gives a buff to other shadows. So you play multiple Faria, and she'll buff her other selves. So just that alone is just an amazing ability on top of the utility of playing her. I'm still on the fence about this card, but I want to see this card possibly used in this type of deck and just do some amazing things. I just like to call this the Dark Rapunzel, basically. This is Elisabeth, the Shadow Princess. Whenever an opponent's Resonator leaves is put on the graveyard from the field, you get to unrest her, and she gets +400/+400 till end of turn. So you can just attack for a tiny amount, and then destroy something, and then untap and attack for a bigger amount, and just continue to try to do this over and over. Then we're sitting at 2 Carmilla, which I'm honestly thinking about with all the destruction I have in this deck, removing these for more Nyarlathotep. But we are sitting at 2 Carmilla. She destroys non-vampires, and she has an 8/8 body. That body is basically the big reason why she has stayed in this deck. Then we have 2 Nyarlathotep. She is just an amazing card. She gives you card advantage in the sense that you get to see your opponent's hand, and you get to see all of that information, and then discard a card. Possibly whatever the worst threat is, or if you can see that even though they have an amazing threat in their hand, they're not going to be able to cast it anytime soon, you know that you have other ways around it, things like that. Oh wow, they have this really big Mephistopheles, but I've got a dude that can blow up a Mephistopheles, and he's got this card in his hand that I couldn't counter if I wanted to. Bye-bye card. So, Nyarlathotep is just amazing, and an 8/8 body, which could technically come out for 2. So it's just a great card all around. Then 2 Mephistopheles. Almost every deck needs a finisher, and this deck, the finisher is our one and only Mephistopheles. The 15/15 target attack flying, that when your opponent targets him, they take 500, and at the end of your turn you have to banish another Resonator. So do not play both of these dudes at the same time, or they will decide to eat each other. Also, be careful of Dreams of Juliet on your end step. Other than that, Mephistopheles is pretty much one of the scariest Resonators in the game. I have not seen a time where I have played Mephistopheles where my opponent didn't have to immediately answer him or lose the game. Taking a look at the rest of the deck / the spells, we have 4 Scorn of Dark Alice, because she really doesn't like you having those angry Resonators that she can't handle, say Purple Mist or Cheshire Cat, things that she can't target and destroy. So we're just going to take those out of your hand and make sure you don't have that. Plus, the hand information you get from being able to look at their hand on turn 1 is just scary stuff. Most people like to mulligan heavy for the things that they need in their deck, and if you... I'm not saying I'd love giving up my turn 1 for a Scorn, but if you're playing against a super aggressive deck that just really needs all of their answers in their hand that first turn, that turn 1 Scorn can really hurt them. Next we have 4 Thunder, because you need the basic 500 damage for 1 burn spell. It can go to the face, it can take out that Resonator that you just can't quite handle. Then we have 3 Barrier of Shadows. This is to obviously shut down those Reflect decks, to shut down any super Regalia heavy deck, those Valentina 2.0 decks that really come at you with all the Regalia, or even just simply a deck like another Alice deck that would have to try to pay 1 more for its God's Art, because sometimes people just have just enough will to do their stuff. And if you can make them pay 1 more for each of their abilities, for their activations of J activations, or their activations of their Regalia, sometimes really hurts some decks. All of their bows costing 1 more per barrier can really hurt. I was able to stop someone from blowing up one of my familiar Holy Wind because I had double barrier out, and it was going to cost him 2 just to use 1 bow on my familiar, so he kind of decided to just keep taking 200 damage. Then we have 3 Flame of Outer World, the only card in the game that cannot be chased. Great removal. Then we have 3 Stoning to Death, the best removal that you could possibly have in the game, except you gotta be in black to be able to play it straight up with that 2 black heavy thing, but it can remove anything. Then we have 3 Schrodinger the Fallen Black Cat, because the Regalia that goes with Alice is just amazing. You remove at least 5 cards in the graveyard from the game, and your ruler, J ruler, gets +5/+5. You remove 10, and she gets Swiftness and Target Attack, and it also produces Will of any color. That alone is amazing. It becomes a mana rock in itself. Looking at the sideboard that I chose, remember this is just my personal choice of the sideboard because I wanted to test around some things. You can go ahead and choose what goes good with your meta and what you're comfortable with in black and red, but I went ahead and went with Blazer Gale Ravus to shut down those ruler-based decks. It's been a staple for most sideboards since he came out. J activates when your opponent has a flipped, only when your opponent has a J ruler when they J activate, and it makes all your stones produce fire. And when he flips, he blanks your opponent's J ruler and then destroys your opponent's J ruler. When he is the only thing present and no Resonators on the field, he gets +400/+400, and also all of your stones tap for red. Then we have Reflect, because sometimes siding into Reflect for another Reflect deck can be really helpful to be able to filter through half your deck. I haven't really done this yet. This was more of a test, so I decided to kind of put it in here. I'm not going to go through all the abilities of Reflect, but hopefully you guys know what it does. If not, you guys can look it up. Then we have Ebony Prophet / Abdul. He is possibly one of my favorite rulers from back from the Grimblock, and because we use Cruz Ballesta, it's really easy to J-activate him. Shuts down things like Alice's World and anything with enter triggers, like Susanoo, or anything that anybody forgets that has enter triggers, like Nyarlathotep and Hoster, and any incarnation from MOA, and things like that. Those all use enter triggers, except the incarnation, not the incarnation Cthulhu, but the incarnation Nyarlathotep, and the incarnation Hoster, and the incarnation Yog-Sothoth, all use enter triggers, and if you can get a turn 1 Bruce Ballista and turn 2 flip Abdul, you've got a 1k, and you've now shut down most of their deck. Or Alice's World really needs the enter trigger for their extra turn to take effect, really needs the enter trigger for Cheshire Cat to take effect. So they rely on some of those things, and people tend to forget about it. Abdul can be a great man, even though he has been shut down and nerfed since the new sets have come out. You J-activate for 1 when you have Cruz Ballesta out, otherwise it costs 2 Darkness and 1 Void, and you can tap and give something Mind Resonator -300/-300. When he is flipped, his continuous is enter abilities your opponent's control do not trigger, and you can twice a turn, you can zero out target Resonator or Addition, target Resonator or Addition, loses all abilities until end of turn, plays only ability twice a turn. Excuse me for fumbling, but I've read this card a million times because I just love this guy. Just the art is amazing, and back in the day when enter triggers were everywhere and being able to blank additions, it just crushed decks. I love being able to put him in the side deck, and honestly, a lot of the times we'll be siding into Abdul just to make people wonder. Next we have 2 Death Scythe to accompany the Blazer, or to pretty much, if we want to just slap it in with our Alice to shut down the aggressive decks if we think we can handle it. 2 Dark Pulse. This is to stop all those small dudes like Knights and Fairies, anything that's 2-drop and below that we're worried about. 3 Split Heaven and Earth, because we kind of have a semi-greedy mana base, but we really don't have to call too many stones, so if we don't have to worry about playing a more aggressive deck, or a deck with a lot more stones, say the Zero Resonator Vlad decks that like to use aggressively like 12 or 16 stones, we can hit them with the Split. Then for those cards that we can't touch, like Purple Mist and other cards that like to protect themselves and play things like Realm of Pure Spirits, we run Recollection of Dystopia. It costs 2 darkness, and it is not an instant, which is the main reason I don't play it as the main board in the deck. It does not appease me because it's not an instant, but in those situations where you need it, I want to be able to side in. Target opponent becomes a... target opponent banishes a Resonator, and as long as your ruler is Dark Alice, which we have Dark Alice, then your God's Arts this turn costs 2 darkness less, so basically you can for free cast your God's Art, get your -2 across your opponent's board, and then pull your Schrodinger from your deck, which I think is pretty good. I just wish it was an instant. And to finish off our sideboard, we have 2 Susanoo the Ten-Fist Sword, because we still have to worry about those dragon decks. Sylvia's becoming a more prominent thing, and even these days people are getting really greedy and playing those small dragon whelps, and playing those guys that reduce the judgment costs, and small little things that they forget are dragons, and we're able to flip for cheaper. So it's a pretty amazing card in itself that I've always loved, and I still don't believe that it's an uncommon. Thank you guys for taking a watch at my Dark Alice profile. This is my for fun personal decks, so please don't get too crazy on saying that it can get really beat by a lot of decks. I know that it can. I just like to have a lot of fun playing around, and Alice has always been one of my favorite characters in this game and outside of this game. So please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below. Take a gander at what this list has to offer, and leave me a comment on what you guys think you would do to this deck, maybe possibly, or what you guys think about how I've done this build. Also, I have another deck profile coming up soon, so I hope you stay tuned. I'm Coco Kane from Tavern TCG, signing out.